Hello everybody, this is TipTopMTG here today with another Magic the Gathering video. In today's video, we are going to be looking at the February 15th, 2021 banned and restricted announcement. Now this is probably going to be a long video because as the title and thumbnail probably suggest, we have 15 bans, 1 unbanning, and an errata. So we have a lot of things that are changing in the world of Magic the Gathering, and this is probably one of the most important things to stay up to date with, because if any of these cards are in your decks, you do need to make sure you remove them. So why don't we just take a brief little overview at all of the bans and stuff, and then we'll break down what they have to say about all of the bans after that. So first off, in Historic, Omnath is being banned from the suspended list, which for those of you who don't know, basically in Historic, most of the time things get suspended. And that means that after 2 to 3 months, they will come back and say, hey, do we think it's a healthy environment to reintroduce this? Or do we think that it should stay banned? So it's kind of like a temporary banning. But they decided Omnath would not be great to come back. Then Uro is being banned, not suspended. This is the only format in MTG Arena, so I'm going to quickly say this now. If you have crafted an Omnath or an Uro after, if you crafted an Omnath or an Uro after the standard ban, but before this ban, you will get wild cards back for them. But if you, for instance, crafted 4 Uros before he was banned in standard, then you will not get an additional 4 wild cards now. All right. Next, we have Pioneer, where we have Balustrade Spy, Teferi Time Raveler, Undercity Informer, Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath, Wilderness Reclamation. Those cards are being banned. In Modern, we have Field of the Dead, Mystic Sanctuary, Simeon Spirit Guide, Tybalt's Trickery, and Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath. In Legacy, we have Arkham's Astrolabe, Dreadhorde Arcanist, Oko Thief of Crowns. In Vintage, we have Luris the Dream Den being unbanned. And in addition to that, we have a rules change, which is affecting Cascade, and this will affect everything everywhere. Essentially, how this works is, before when you would Cascade into a molded double face card, and the big problem card here was Tybalt, you would look at the front card. So for instance, Valky is a 2-cost creature, and so if you have something that was like a 3-mana Cascade spell, you'd play it, you'd Cascade for something that was 2 or 1, and then you'd find Valky. But the thing about molded double face card is when you cast it, you can cast either side. So you'd Cascade into the 2-drop, but actually put down the 7-drop Tybalt. And so that was the really big problem. And so what this is doing is it's changing that so you can only do a spell that is less than the converted mana cost. So say you Cascade a 5-drop and you go down and you see Valky, you can only cast Valky. And how this technically works is whenever you go to cast the spell, you can only cast the spell if it has lesser CMC, which was not in the original rules. It was just find a card with lesser CMC and cast it. Now it's find a card with lesser CMC and cast it if it has lesser CMC. And what that does is it changes like 2 main things. If I'm not mistaken, Adventures used to work like this too. You used to be able to Cascade into Goldilocks, I forgot the name of the card, and then you used to be able to cast the really expensive Adventure on it. And now with this, you used to be able to go Cascade into a molded double face card and cast either side. Now you can only cast either side if both sides are eligible for the Cascade cost. For instance, if you Cascade from a 7-drop and you do get that Valky/Tybalt, you can choose either or. So it's a really nice way to nerf it to where you can still get the back of cards, but you are not able to just cheat things out really early. And they did this so that they wouldn't have to ban things like Valky or Cascade cards from formats. This is very not similar to the companion change because this isn't completely changing a mechanic. This was just updating rules text to make things work how they probably should. So yeah, those are the bans, unbans, and rules changes. Why don't we take a little read about what they have to say about all this? So, ready? Let's go. Format changes throughout the past year with pandemic conditions resulting in fewer high-level tabletop tournaments. We correspondingly slowed the pace of banning and restricted list changes in non-rotating formats. Recent community discussion has made it clear that many fans of those formats are interested in seeing shakeups to those metagames. Today's changes represent us taking a close look at each of Historic, Pioneer, Modern, Legacy, and Vintage, and responding to both play data and community feedback. So first, let's talk about Historic. Decks built around Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath, are most played in Historic and have been for a while now. While other decks have contested for that position, the steady dominance of Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath shows it's too powerful for the format. Because of the examples of how this card has performed in other larger formats, we do not feel like we need to suspend the card to see how the format reacts. To increase the diversity of decks at the top of the Historic metagame, Uro is banned. And this makes a lot of sense. They basically are saying, we know we are not going to unban this, so why would we just suspend it? I think that makes a lot of sense. And the reasoning why they say they know this is because, well, it's banned in like every other format. So if Pioneer can't handle it, what makes them think Historic will be able to as well? And I think that's a really, good way to look at it. And they also talk about Omnath. Omnath is currently suspended in Historic, and our data indicates that diversity and interest in the meta would be harmed by reintroducing him. I agree. That's pretty much all they have to say there. So yeah. I don't think either of these are necessarily a surprise. I think some people may have wanted more cards banned, but I'm just glad we're getting Uro kind of out of here. This will be the second Simic Mythic that is banned in everything on MTG Arena. And then Omnath obviously being banned as well. Pioneer. Our vision for Pioneer is a collection of the most fun, powerful, and iconic cards and strategies from recent standard formats. However, there's a dividing line between powerful and iconic and overbearing and fun. In this update, we're addressing several cards and strategies that we feel cross that line and aren't representative of the play experience we'd like to offer. First, Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath has become one of the most dominant creatures in Pioneer and is featured in several of the most played and most winning decks. Ultimately, we feel Uro's power level is out of line with other cards and strategies available in Pioneer. Play data indicates and community feedback supports that the metagame will be more fun and diverse without Uro. Basically, if you're running Simic, you're running Uro because he just does so much. He not only gives you a ton of value, but he's also then comes back as a huge creature later. He is then able to repeatedly do things. It allows for a lot of sustainability in with one card and not much else. So I think it makes sense that Uro is being banned. He's one of the most broken cards we've seen in a while. In addition, we're taking this opportunity to ban Teferi, Time Raveler, and Wilderness Reclamation from Pioneer as cards that have previously overstayed their welcome in Standard. Removing Teferi will have the added benefit of lowering the power level of Niv to Light decks, which were among the most played and most winning archetypes, and without Teferi to hold them in check, we're concerned that the metagame share of Wilderness Reclamation decks would rise, so we're choosing to preempt that outcome. They kind of did a similar thing in Standard where they're like, well, if we ban Teferi, then Wilderness Reclamation decks are going to start just being insane, so they banned both at the same time. I think it makes a lot of sense that they're doing the same with Pioneer. Finally, we're seeing a concerning win rate and metagame share for Oops All Spells deck, which uses Balatrude Spy and Undercity Informer to mill its entire library, having no cards that count as lands while in the library. Given the difficulty of interacting with the strategy, it isn't easily held in check by natural metagame forces. We don't believe Pioneer can be at its most fun with Oops All Spells being a large part of the metagame, so we're choosing to ban them. So the idea here is that you'd use multiple double-faced lands, and since they didn't count as lands in the library, you could just mill yourself with this one card, and then you'd obviously just win the game from that. And so, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In Modern, as in Pioneer, Uro has become a dominant fixture. I'm just going to save us all some time. Anything that applied to Historic or Pioneer applied to Modern here. Along with Uro, we're also addressing two land cards that are frequently used by ramp and control strategies that we feel are decreasing diversity of gameplay patterns. Field of the Dead and Mystic Sanctuary. Both lands create repetitive and non-interactive game states in the late game for relatively low deck building costs. To promote more back and forth gameplay and interaction over win conditions, we're choosing to remove them. So yeah, these cards are really, really good. They allow for a lot of value. They're not a super big deal to put in your deck, and they're really hard to interact with. So I agree, they probably should be banned. Simian Spirit Guide is a card we've had our eye on for some time, an enabler that speeds up fast combo decks. As the modern card pool has grown, so too has the capability for decks to assemble early game winning combination from hand, with some more recent examples including Oops All Spells, Charbelcher variants, and some builds of the recent Tybalt's Trickery deck. To slow down the category of combo as a whole and give opponents more time to set up interactive plays in the early game, Simian Spirit Guide is banned. I think that makes sense. They are trying to make sure they are addressing everything. Finally, while there's been much discussion about the new Tybalt's Trickery decks in several formats, we see Modern as the format where the decks are unequivocally problematic via Tybalt's Trickery interaction with Cascade. While the overall win rate of the deck hasn't shown to be problematic, we believe that it contributes to non-games that make Modern less fun to play. Yes, Tipple Trickery makes games less fun to play. Who would have thought? As the goal of this update is to shake up the metagame into a more fun spot, we're concerned that continued metagame presence of Tipple Trickery decks would work against that goal, and so they're banning it. So yeah, basically they're saying this because there's not as many, pro tournaments or just events happening. They want to really just make sure that the formats are fun, and I think that's a really good stance to have. I think Magic is a game, and so most people play it that way. Not many people play it to like earn a living. And so I think that it being fun is just really, really important. Next, let's talk about Legacy. While balance hasn't looked problematic in Legacy, we've heard community feedback that a few cards have drawn too much of focus for deck building. So Oko's being banned. He's been proven powerful in other formats, but with Legacy having an especially high overall power level, we've been waiting to see whether it would fall in line with the average power level of the rest of the metagame. Over time, we've seen Oko continue to remain a major metagame presence and a contributor to lower diversity. With its huge card pool, Legacy is a format that should offer tremendous variety of deck building options and reward innovative deck construction and tuning. Because of its power and flexibility, Oko can provide an easy answer even to unanticipated threats and defenses, and generally homogeneous. Oh my gosh, why can I not say that word? Oh my, you know what? Today's just a day. Apparently, gameplay patterns in a way that's counter to the spirit of the format. Therefore, we're choosing to ban Oko. Yeah, this makes sense. Oko's just banned out of everything. It makes sense. Arcum's Astrolabe is another card that has contributed to the power and consistency of Sunoco decks. Traditionally in Legacy, deck builders need to make choices about whether to have easy access to many colors or build a mana base that's resilient to disruption like Wasteland and Blood Moon. Arcum's Astrolabe allows mana bases to have both high color flexibility and high resilience to mana denial that's uniquely important of the Legacy metagame. Ultimately, we think that the narrow class of decks having such resiliency for a relatively low investment is an advantage that leads to less diversity. Yep. I mean, this is also another card that's just being banned out of everything. Next, we have Dreadhorde Arcanist. It's already been proven to be powerful and game-defining in a way that further adds to cards and strategies that were already among the most powerful, like Temur Delver. Without Oko, we anticipate Dreadhorde Arcanist strategies would only become more prominent. Ultimately, the community sentiment we've heard is that our Dreadhorde Arcanist makes gameplay revolve around it too early in the game, and that too many games come down to whether an opponent can immediately remove it. Therefore, we are choosing to ban Dreadhorde Arcanist in Legacy. Finally, we did discuss banning Uro in Legacy as well, but we feel its power level is more in line with the overall power of Legacy. The bar is high for what 3 and 4 mana spells need to accomplish in Legacy, and we believe Uro can coexist as a competitive but not a dominant option. Additionally, the bans of Oko, Thief of Crowns, and Arcum Astrolabe should significantly decrease the metagame share of Uro that it naturally slits in. So that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, they basically are just saying Uro is a little bit more powerful because, your 3 and 4 drops do need to be more powerful in those older formats. Then let's talk about Vintage. Shortly after the release of Ikoria, Lurrus was added to the Vintage banned list as the only card on that list solely due to power level, for the unique reason that restriction was not a meaningful solution given the companion mechanic. At the time, the power level benefit of using Lurrus as a companion was far too high relative to its deck building cost. However, we've since changed the companion rules to require additional mana investment, which comes at a premium in the context of Vintage power level. A key aspect of the spirit of Vintage that we'd like as much of Magic's card library to be available as possible. So we're running the experiment of unbanning Lurrus. We'll be keeping our eye on what this does to the metagame and are willing to revert the change if needed, but we believe Lurrus should be given another chance. So yeah, a lot of people have been calling for this. I know a lot of people have also been saying they don't want this, but essentially because of the new companion, I guess new is a little bit of a, not the right word, but because of the companion changes, people think Lurrus would be fine to be reintroduced. I appreciate that they're telling us right here that, hey, if this goes horribly, they're going to ban it, so maybe don't invest in Lurrus. But yeah, keep that in mind. And then let's talk about Cascade. They don't really say much here other than the fact of what I explained at the beginning. So that's pretty much it. So yeah, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Those have been all of the bans, unbannings, and rules changes that were announced today, being February 15th, of course. If you guys have any opinions you guys want to share with me, let me know in the comments down below. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and stay subscribed. Hit subscribe to stay up to date with everything Magic and my channel. Either way, guys, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.